So I thought what I might do is I might give you 5 of the things that I think you really, really need if you're going to succeed in public relations. You could probably apply it to all business, but certainly in PR. So let me give you my 5 top tips for a long and healthy career in public relations, hopefully. The first is to cross-check all details. Niggle matters. It really, really makes a big difference. The small things are the things that will trip you up, not the big things. The big things will wake you up in the middle of the night. You'll wake at 3 o'clock in the morning and go, oh my God, I'm not sure that we actually organised a boat and we're supposed to be doing a boat trip. That you will remember. The small little things like what was the name of somebody that I was meant to ring or who was my go-to person, that will crucify you. I'll give you some examples if I can. When I was in Galicia 2 years ago and I was negotiating a TV deal. I was negotiating a TV deal with a colleague. We'd gone through everything. Basically, we were creating an Irish-Galician, it was a Gaeltacht-Galician joint venture. And what we wanted was both televisions, both TG Car and Galician TV, would actually create this shared story, which would be told so many minutes a day over 5 days. We'd gone through everything. We'd gone through who am I actually meeting, what do you need me to do. And it was very funny because Miguel every so often would ring me up and say, Ellen, you know, I've given you all this information. You read all this information? I said, Miguel, my life is too short. You know, I don't have time to read all this information. Just tell me who I'm meeting, where I'm meeting. You know, I'll do it. I'll be there. I'll be all over it like a cheap suit. Don't expect me to read all this stuff. You know, life's too short. So we arrived in anyway into Galicia and I had done my piece and I was ready for it. So I went, hola, Rosa, perdone, no español. And she goes, hola, Elaine, perdone, no inglese. I went, minor little detail that might make a bit of a difference. Difficult to negotiate when you don't actually share a common language. And what became really clear after a while was that body language was huge. I knew which bits she wasn't getting. I knew where she was getting stressed. I knew it was like, I don't know what's wrong with that, but she doesn't like that idea. And you go, what exactly are you explaining? And I have a terrible attitude problem. So at one stage, the guy beside me said, she recommended that we do something or other. And he carried on talking. And I said, she recommended all that? And he said, no, I'm explaining. I said, don't effing explain. I'm trying to listen to what's being actually said. Explain to me later. Wait till I get a handle on what's going on. So eventually I said to them all, can you just stop? And can one person translate exactly what I'm saying to Rose, and can she translate back what she says to me, and nobody else speaks? And they said, fine, okay. So about 6 of us at the meeting. And I started off by saying to her, okay, I get that you obviously like this piece, you like that piece, you like the treatment. There is some problem with the sponsorship and the broadcast on television. What exactly is the problem with the sponsorship? And she said, the problem is that we are not prepared to do it for nothing for you. You have to pay to have the program broadcast. And I said, that's fine, that's no problem at all. And Miguel nearly had a heart attack sitting beside me, and he said, that is a problem. I said, I asked you just to translate, so can you translate back? That's fine, that is no problem at all. So he says, fine, that's no problem at all. I said, so what you will do is you will charge us for the promotion of the piece on television, and you will actually pay for the creation of the piece. And she said, no. And I said, well, in Ireland, what happens is that we pay to actually make the production, so we put the 30 to 50K into it, and you broadcast it for nothing. But if you want to do it the other way around, that's fine, that's no problem. You can charge us 50K, but then you actually create it in the end. She went, okay, it's no problem. But we came out and he said to me, now we go to meet Steven Spielberg. I said, now we're going to meet who, Miguel? He said, it's Steven Spielberg. I said, if I'm meeting a Steven Spielberg and I am not all over a social media and the whole world knows that I am meeting a Steven Spielberg, there will be hell to pay. And he said, well, it's the Spanish Steven Spielberg. And I still can't remember what the poor guy's name was. But the attention to detail was that I knew what I was negotiating, what I needed to negotiate, how much money we were going to spend, when we wanted to broadcast, everything except the language. Watching the signs of the signals in the detail that people send you. The little detail is what gets you into trouble every single time. The little detail is also, by the way, the person. If you're working in PR, you're counting on people who provide the flowers. You rent rooms from them, you take cars from them, they chauffeur drive for you. You have a pool of people that you constantly depend on. You need to have a system of marking the people who are utterly unreliable. And utterly unreliable in my book is anybody who lets you down once. I don't care what happens. I don't care if they turn up and say, my granny died, somebody ran over my cat, my car broke down, and I was trying to get here from Timbuktu. You go, fine, so did you make it at 10 o'clock and have you got the stuff? because that's the bottom line, that you've one piece of the jigsaw to put in place for me. We've a rule in the office that we introduced years ago. It was very interesting, actually. I said to one of my colleagues years back, we'd worked with a photographer, and the photographer had just completely disappeared. I don't know if he had a drink problem, if he got run down. I don't know what the hell happened to the guy, but he disappeared. He turned up at a function, he took loads of photographs, and then we never saw him again. And we'd no photographs. And I said to her, by the way, be sure that you mark on a database somewhere never to work with this guy again. And she said, fine, no problem. And for some reason or other, a couple of days later, I came back to her and I said, did you mark that on the database, by the way? And she said, oh yeah, I took him off the database. And I said, no, I didn't ask you to take him off the database. I asked you to mark him on the database. And she said, mark him how? And I said, you put him back on the database with all the details, and at the end of it you put, Ellen says, never work with this idiot again. That's all. I don't want any more details. It doesn't matter if nobody in 15 years' time remembers what he did. He did something that made us think, because at the end of the day, he made us look bad. He was a detail that we had subscribed to. You also need, by the way, a system of, you're constantly asking people to refer to you. You would do this in business anyway. You particularly do it in PR. Who did you work with? Did you work with somebody who handled, who was a chauffeur drive for you? Were they good? Would you recommend them again? Who are they? You will come across people who recommend people who are absolute lulas. I mean, they go onto your list of, as soon as that fella says, do you know who I'd recommend, you go, that is one person I am never, ever, ever going to work with. Because there are some people who just recommend people because they met them. A recommendation is, I met you, I worked with you, you're reliable, I'm recommending you for the job. Nothing will go wrong. This is a safe pair of hands that you can put that particular job in. It's not, yeah, I know somebody who might be able to do it for you. So also keep a note in your head of the people who very willingly, very obligingly will make recommendations to you that are utterly useless. A recommendation is somebody you've worked with and can stand over. If they can't recommend somebody to you, mark them as thanks very much and pay absolutely no attention. Your second one is to trust your own instincts. You know that gut feeling? You know that thing that, you know when you meet somebody for the first time and you go, hi, how are you? And almost before you shake hands, you go, creep alert, I don't like them. We are not going to get on. Thank you very much. You know, go live on another planet somewhere and have a happy life. What is that? You can't explain it. It's nothing they did. They didn't even manage to connect with your hand before you decided, we are not going to get on. There's something in your gut that says, this ain't right. And you shouldn't run away from it. You should actually trust it. It will do two things for you. And probably the most important thing is it will preserve your reputation. It will save you losing money in the first instance, but it will also preserve your reputation. Okay. Plan and be authoritative. The authoritative is very important, right? For authoritative, read boss people, okay? But it works really well. Your job is to know how something will impact. So this will work well, this will work badly, this will be interpreted well in Ireland, this will be completely misinterpreted in the UK. It'll work well here, but it will not fly in the UK. That's your job. You need to be, I suppose, bossy is kind of, it's a bit extreme, but it's probably true when you're working with younger people. You do have a lot of leeway. We did a photo shoot at one stage where up to the night before, it was an award ceremony. This group of transition year students had won an award for, I don't know, keeping Ireland eco-green or friendly or something. And up to the night before, I still kept thinking, you know, I don't know what the photograph is. We've got the minister, we've got the chairman of the semi-state, we've got students that I haven't seen before, like 10 or 15 students. The only thing I know is the girls, they're coming up from the country. It's, this is nothing. And that morning I got this brainwave and thought, of course, they put Ireland on trial. They put the world on trial and found us wanting. So I went off and I got all these, rang around and got these gowns and judges' wigs and gavels and brilliant gig, and arrived in with two big refuse sacks. And in fairness, the chief executive that I was working for was marvellous. You could arrive in and say, I've just spent $1,000, and he'd go, God, you're an awful woman. What are you doing now? He was brilliant. So I arrived in with these refuse sacks anyway. He said, and what exactly have we got here? And I said, oh, we're going to dress them all up as judges. It'll make a great picture. And he said, the best of luck to you. 15-year-old, 16-year-old girls, and you're going to get them to put wigs and get, it's not going to happen. I said, of course it'll happen. I'm still in the zone. I need a picture, okay? And I'm kind of zone focused. So I arrive in and go, hello, hello, hello. This is what we're doing. Here are all the gowns. Here are all the wigs. Let's go. We can put them all on. There's always one with attitude. So one comes stalking across the room, okay? Picks up the wig like this and says, this skanky thing is not going on my head. Never. And I thought, I need his attitude like a hole in the head. And I'm still thinking, I want a picture. And I said, brilliant, do me a favour, sweetheart, go over there, sit down, and stay out of my way till I get all the pictures taken for the photographers. And then you needn't put that skanky thing on at all. Everybody else, I need heads, wigs, gowns, everything. We're going out there, and this is the Irish Times, this is whoever. And suddenly everybody else goes, yeah. Because everybody here is like, it's media, and I'm going to be photographed. And Madam, with the attitude, comes strolling over after a few minutes and says, just this once. 1-0 to moi. But you do actually forget that there's a whole world out there. You completely forget that there's a world outside of what you're doing. Fourth rule, never underestimate the power of language or visuals. We had language, we had a radio interview quite a number of years ago now, but it stuck in my head as a great example of what can go wrong. It was a radio interview for DuBarry. It's probably 15 years ago or more, maybe 20 years ago. We were working for DuBarry, their company in Galway. They were making shoes. You know the DuBarry shoes? They had a company in Spain that were making the molds and soles for them. Basically, there was a dispute between the two. The company in Spain was taken over by the workers. I have no idea. The dispute had nothing to do with DuBarry, but it affected DuBarry. It meant that they were laying off workers. It looked like their summer line wasn't going to come out. This was going to have serious impact on the company's profit figures. And the chief executive, the golden rule in public relations is if you're going to do a media interview, I don't mind who you're going to talk to, but let me know first so that I can be prepared. I can maybe give you a couple of pointers, and I can definitely be listening 100%. I'm driving in the car and I hear somebody saying, and now in studio, now on the phone line, we're joined by the chief executive of DuBarry. I thought, oh no, what is going on? So listen to the interview in the middle of, blasting everybody off the road and calling them all idiots and the usual stuff. But when I get into the office, I rang the media monitoring agency and said, do me a favour, don't even wait to transcribe anything. Find the audio and play it back to me. There was something that was said in the interview that I wasn't happy with, but I can't, my brain was in too many places when I was listening to it. So they played it back and I rang the chief executive. Now you've got to bear in mind, he's just done Morning Ireland. He is high-fiving everybody. Everybody's going, you're the man. That was absolutely awesome. Oh, you nailed it, it was brilliant. And I understand it. It's Morning Ireland, it's the most listened to programme on radio. And he did really well. And I rang him and said, really good, I loved it, you really did well. But in the middle of it all, you used the word maverick. Not a good idea to call the workers in Spain mavericks. So maybe choose a different word. And he said, look, Ellen, I appreciate what you're saying, but really, you're in Dublin, I'm in Galway, where we don't really get that stressed about like individual teeny-weeny little words. And I did a 7-minute interview and it was absolutely awesome. And I said, it was brilliant, but don't use the word maverick again. In fairness, at 10:30, he rang me back and said, okay, I take it back. I shouldn't have used the word maverick. And I said, oh, that didn't take long. What happened this morning? And he said, no, the unions have just come in because they were a unionised workforce. And the unions had just come in and said, you cannot call a fellow unionised workforce mavericks. They are perfectly entitled to strike or to sit in for whatever it is they want to do. Grand. So I said, that's fine. I'm happy. I was right. See, next time a stressed out bunny from Dublin tells you something, pay attention. He says, yeah, that's grand. And then at 4:30 that afternoon, he rang me and he said, this thing is still growing legs. And I said, no, it should have been well over by now. What do you mean it's still growing legs? The company in Spain was in the, what was the very volatile area of Spain at the time? The Basque region, thank you. It was in the Basque region. It wasn't a great place to be sitting in. The company in DuBarry had actually sent people over to negotiate very quietly, hadn't told anybody. And what happened was the Spanish embassy rang DuBarry and said, by the way, that one piece of a clip has been picked up in the Basque region, and maverick was translated as banditos. And their very strong recommendation was, get your 2 people out of the Basque region because we can't guarantee their safety. It was one word in a probably 6 or 7 minute interview. People light on the one word. The other rule with language, of course, is always keep it as simple as you possibly can. Nobody ever got insulted by understanding every word that you say. I had a wonderful colleague a few years ago, and with the greatest respect to Camillus, he was a professor of communications, and it wasn't Camillus. And we had agreed we were doing this training course in Hungary. And we were doing 3 different topics each day for 3 days. So 9 topics. So we sat down in advance, we went through it all, and I said to him, okay, so I'll cover this, you cover that. And we came to this final 9th topic, and he said, what about, I can't remember what it was, what about this? And I said, seriously outside of my comfort zone, I know nothing about it. So you'll definitely have to take that one. Should we actually be doing it at all? And he said, oh yeah, we definitely should. So it was coming closer to the time. I thought, he hasn't sent me anything. I don't have any overheads, or any PowerPoints. Maybe I'll just prep the 8. So I prepped the other 8 because it's just like belt and braces, and you're going to be away and you want to be sure you have everything. And on the very first morning, he stood up and said, ladies and gentlemen, it is a wonderful pleasure to introduce you to my colleague, Ellen Gulling. Ellen is, the greatest thing since spilt milk. And here she is to talk to you about whatever the first item was. We break. We come back, and he stands up again and says, ladies and gentlemen, you can never get too much of a good thing. I'm going, okay, this is interesting. We were supposed to do 1 and 1. So for the first 2 days, I did 3 sessions the first day, 3 sessions the second day. The third day, I did the first 2 sessions, and I thought, he's going to stand up, because he now hadn't taught anything in 3 days. I thought, he's going to do exactly the same thing. He's going to stand up for the third one and introduce me, and I know nothing about this area. So the third lecture came along, and I popped up and said, ladies and gentlemen, you should always save the best wine till last. It is an awesome pleasure to introduce my colleague. Talked him up to the hilt and handed over to him. Now, I knew he hadn't prepared 1 word, not 1 word. So he stood up, didn't flap him in the least. This is a 2-hour session. And he started by saying, we're talking about communications. What is communications? Communications is a medium and a message. It is a sender and a receiver. It is a bridge across which we transmute our ideas, our concepts. And he just took off. And for 2 hours, he used the most beautiful flowery language to talk SH1TE. When he finished, we all went out for a cup of coffee. And I said to one of them, they gave him a standing ovation. I was fit to kill, right, absolutely fit to kill. So we came out afterwards, we're having a cup of coffee, and I was talking to one of the women, and I said to her, fascinating presentation. And she said, oh, it was amazing, amazing. And I said, I must admit, I found it a bit difficult to follow in places. And she said, difficult to follow? None of us had the faintest idea what the man was talking about, but he's so well educated, and he used such beautiful words. It was a pleasure to listen to him. He spent 2 hours communicating nothing. All he communicated was the fact that he was very well educated and could use very big words. Nobody will ever complain if they understand what you say, so keep it as simple as you possibly can. And your final one, number 5, always be open to new opportunities. Public relations it's amazing. You just get so many opportunities, you wouldn't believe it. People keep asking you to do things. They assume, I suppose the nature of being in public relations is that you're quite a confident person anyway. You're on top of your brief, you know what you're doing. So somebody says, how do I promote this? You instantly go into, we could do it this way, we could do it that way, we need to use social media, we don't use that particular platform, we use this platform. You know what you're at. So people will come up to you and say, so why don't you, like Camilla's mentioned, I have a radio program every week. I have a radio program every week because when Mick Hanley approached me, he actually approached me one night. He was a former student of mine. Then he became a lecturer for me. Then he became chief executive of the station. And I met him one night and he said, you interested in going on the board of Dublin City FM? And I'm a complete idiot. Anything I'm interested in, I like, woohoo, yeah, I'll do that. And anything I'm not, it's very easy to go, nah, bored, wouldn't do it. But he said, you interested in going on the board of the radio station? And I said, yeah. And he said, okay. Well, the AGM's on in a couple of weeks' time. I'll put you forward for it. And I said, can I just be clear about this? I can actually go to the pub for a pint and say that I'm on the board of a radio station? And he said, yeah. I said, oh, how cool is that? Okay, I'm your girl. But then I am inclined to be a bit slow. So about 2 weeks later, I came back to him and said, were you actually serious about that? And he said, yeah. And I said, actually, I'd love to try it. Now, I'm now in my, I think, 27th or 28th season doing it. I listened back to the first one and it's, hello, I am Ellen Gunning. This is the, and it's like, well, I am a dialect. You know, please bear with me while I figure out what I'm doing. And now I actually rock into the station and go, come on, who am I talking to today? This is fun, bring it on. Because I've actually done the research, I've got much more comfortable with it. It's about chatting to me, I love it. But I would never have got the opportunity if he hadn't said, do you want to go on the board of the radio station? In fairness to him, he had said, sure, I'll work with you, I'll make it easy. And that's the other thing. If people ask you to do something and you're willing to do it, they'll mostly help. But it's all in how you say yes. So if you say, no, I wouldn't really be able for it, what you've actually done is you've created the maybe it wasn't a good idea asking her or him because he wasn't so sure he could do it. Whereas if you say, yeah, I'd love to, you're going to have to give me a dig out. I'm sure I'll get stuck with stuff. It's much more flattering. Everybody kind of goes, yeah, of course I will. Don't worry about it. But that's brilliant. You're doing it. You're on board. Be very careful about what you say no to. Frame your mind into a yes every time and then talk yourself out of it. Don't start with a no. Start with a, of course I will, and then reverse back to what a silly bugger idea. I don't think I'd actually have time to do that at all. Or, now that I've started thinking I'll do it, sure, I can only learn. I can only go forward from it. So 5 hot tips which I hope lead to a happy and healthy career in public relations. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody isn't.